Imagine waking up to a quiet cobblestone street in Alfama with the sun reflecting off Lisbon's ancient rooftops. Now picture that serenity being disrupted by sweeping regulations on short-term rentals that have had many investors on edge. But the tides have shifted again in 2025. The question is, what does this mean for the future of your short-term rental investments in Portugal? Hi there, welcome to our channel where we decode the intricate world of property investments in Portugal. Today, we're diving into something that's got every investor buzzing: Portugal's evolving short-term rental regulations for 2025. With significant policy changes, including tax amendments, licensing reforms, and newfound power for municipalities, there's a lot to unpack. So let's jump right into it. So, how did we get here? To understand where we are now, we have to rewind through to 2023. And that was a really tough year for short-term rental owners. The government's CEAL, or More Housing programme, introduced some pretty harsh policies, like the controversial Extraordinary Local Accommodation Contribution, or CEAL, and this added a 15% fixed tax rate on rental properties, making many wonder if their days as short-term rental owners were numbered. On top of that, there was a nationwide suspension of new short-term rental licenses, leaving investors stranded, unsure whether their businesses could survive. Some municipalities were stripped of their ability to issue new licenses for apartments, and small investors who had put their life savings into short-term rental properties were devastated. It seemed like the golden era of short-term rentals in Portugal was fading fast. But why did Portugal make these changes? Well, it all boils down to the housing affordability and the pressures on the local housing market. With tourism booming over the last decade, short-term rentals have been on the rise, causing property prices to skyrocket in many areas. And for locals, finding a place to live has become a serious challenge, especially in hotspots like Lisbon and Porto. But here's where the plot twists. With a new government in office as of April 2024, the focus has shifted back to growth and stability for short-term rentals. While these reforms have been proposed, it's important to note that they aren't yet in effect. So, what exactly should be expected? Firstly, the CEAL is being repealed, so no more extra 15% tax burden specifically targeting short-term rental owners. And this move is a breath of fresh air for investors, encouraging them to re-enter the market without fear of being financially drained. For those considering jumping into the market or expanding their current portfolio, this is a huge win. Reduced taxes mean more profitability and a less risky environment for new investors. Second, the previously suspended short-term rental licenses, they will be back. However, it's not a free-for-all. Municipalities are once again empowered to issue licenses, but with localized touch. Instead of blanket regulations, each municipality can now tailor rules specific to their region's needs. For example, in areas like Alfama, Barrio Alto, and others in the historic centres of Lisbon and Porto that have been considered containment areas since 2019, where the market had previously saturated, local councils may not consider new short-term rental properties. Imagine a situation of a Lisbon property owner who invested in a short-term rental property before the bans were enforced. For a year, she watched her investment languish due to the restrictions, and now with the changes, she can finally apply for a new license and rejoin the rental market, providing much needed relief to her and countless others. In perhaps the most encouraging development, the expiration of short-term rental licenses will be abolished. Previously, licenses had an expiration date, meaning that after a set period, you could lose your ability to operate. Now, licenses can transfer with the sale of properties, giving a boost to property values and providing more security for investors looking to sell their short-term rental properties along down the line. No more watching the clock, hoping that you can recoup your investment before your license disappears. This shift offers predictability, which is a welcome change in the market that's become increasingly uncertain. Previously, licenses for short-term rentals were non-transferable, meaning that if an owner sold their property, the license expired. This rule wreaked havoc on the market, discouraging sales and reducing the value of properties. The good news, the government has finally eliminated this restriction. Investors can now buy and sell properties without worrying about losing their rental licenses. This move is set to revive confidence in the market, encouraging both local and foreign investments. But what does it mean that municipalities now have control over the short-term rental licenses? Well, it's a mixed bag. On the one hand, this localized approach allows for more nuanced regulations that cater to the specific demands for each neighborhood. Take Lisbon, for example. Neighbourhoods like Baisha, teeming with tourists, may see more leniency when it comes to issuing new licences, but quieter residential areas like Cambaduri might face stricter limitations to avoid pushing out locals. On the flip side, this decentralisation means that the rules can vary drastically depending on where you are in Portugal, and investors will need to stay informed on a local level to ensure they don't find themselves navigating a patchwork of regulations. For many investors, the most frustrating aspect of last year's legislation was the financial burden. The CEAL tax combined with adjustments to the municipal property tax, or IMI, where the age of the property was disregarded for tax calculation purposes, which drove up costs even further. But now, with the repeal of CEAL, the financial outlook is brighter for short-term rental owners. Essentially, older properties will no longer be taxed as if they were brand new, which can significantly reduce overhead costs for owners operating in historic districts like Alfama or Porto's Ribeira. The relaxation of laws will likely lead to a resurgence in property acquisitions for short-term rentals, particularly in high-demand urban areas like Lisbon, Porto, and even along the Algarve coast. Investors who are hesitant due to uncertainty can now feel more secure knowing that the government is actively working to restore confidence in the market. The lifting of the licence ban will allow for more flexibility, while the reduction of taxes and restoration of transferability encourages long-term investment. So, with the 2024 reforms, Portugal's short-term rental market is poised for recovery. While housing shortages remain an issue, the decentralisation of power to municipalities allows for more localised, thoughtful regulations that balance the needs of residents with the demands of the tourism economy. If you're a property owner, investor, or simply someone interested in understanding how these changes impact the future of short-term rentals in Portugal, make sure to stay updated by clicking the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell. And if you're looking to explore your options further, don't hesitate to book a free call with us. Let's discuss how these reforms can work to your advantage. We'll see you in the next video, guys.